I always thought I'd walk her down the aisle. That was the picture I carried in my mind. Her hand in mine, the train of her dress sweeping the floor, the soft hum of strings playing something familiar as we moved together toward a future I thought I helped build. Instead, she sat across from me at a coffee shop with too much sunlight and too little warmth. Her smile was thin, practiced. Her fingers curled around her mug like she was holding a script, not a drink. "Dad," she began, "about the wedding." I nodded, already reaching for my wallet. I assumed it was another vendor deposit or seating chart emergency. "We've decided it's best if you don't walk me down the aisle." I blinked. At first I laughed, quietly, the kind of laugh that tries to find the joke in the wound. She didn't laugh with me. "What do you mean?" I asked. "It's nothing personal," she said. "It's just symbolic independence. Trevor and I talked about it. His parents agree. It's kind of outdated, you know. A man giving a woman away, it just feels wrong." Outdated. I raised this girl through fevers and heartbreaks, scraped knees and night terrors. I taught her how to drive. I sat through her college entrance interviews. I paid every invoice, every tuition check, every credit card mistake. And now I was outdated. I started, but she cut me off. "Don't make this about you, okay?" she said, her eyes hardening just enough to make the softness before feel like a setup. "This is my moment. Please don't ruin it by getting dramatic." Dramatic. That word landed harder than she knew. She took a long sip of her coffee, glanced out the window, then said, "You'll still be there. You'll have a seat up front. You'll still give a toast if you want." A seat, a toast, but not a walk. I swallowed the heat rising in my chest. "Okay," I said, "if that's what you want." Her smile returned. "Thank you for understanding." But I didn't, not really. I nodded, stood up, and left. I didn't hug her, didn't ask when we'd talk again. I just walked out into the cold, where the air bit through my coat like truth cutting through memory. I wish someone had warned me. If anyone's listening, don't make the mistake I did. Don't assume love earned will always be love returned. At home, I stood in front of the mirror and stared at myself longer than I should have. I tried to find the father she once adored, the man she used to call her hero. But all I saw was a placeholder in a rented tuxedo. And somewhere inside, something quietly cracked. The first invoice came 2 days after that coffee shop meeting. "Cake deposit $1,200, the subject line read. No greeting, no message, just a PDF attachment and a timestamp. The second came a day later, florist upgrade $850. Then the venue bump, the string quartet add-on, a bill for her future in-laws' hotel suite. They prefer premium bedding. Each line item chipped away at something in me I hadn't realized was still holding on. I called her. "Hey, Lauren," I said, trying to keep my tone light. "Just got the florist invoice. That's on me too." She sighed. "Dad, you said you wanted to help." "I did, I do. But it's starting to feel like I'm a line of credit, not family." She paused. "Well, that's not fair." "I'm not trying to fight, I just thought." "You thought you'd get something in return," she cut in. "Like the aisle, right? This is exactly why we made that decision. I knew you'd make it about yourself." I swallowed hard. "That's not what I said." "Look," she snapped, "if it's too much, just say so." Then the line went dead. The next day, she sent me a payment request with a memo that simply read, "Catering down payment, time sensitive." That Friday, I attended a small planning dinner at their apartment. Her fiancé, Trevor, barely looked at me. His parents talked about Europe and wine pairings like I wasn't there. I tried to follow along, smiling where it felt appropriate. Trevor leaned over to one of his groomsmen and muttered, "At least he'll be good for the check." Lauren laughed. I excused myself early, said I had a headache. No one tried to stop me. That night I opened the hallway closet and pulled out an old photo album, dusty leather, cracked spine. Inside, tucked between pages, was a photo I hadn't seen in years. Lauren, 5 years old, standing on my shoes as we danced in the kitchen. Her face tilted up to mine, all joy and safety. Her hands wrapped around my fingers like they were the only anchor she needed. Back then, she used to look at me like I was her whole world. Now I was just a wallet with memories. I sat in the kitchen for a long time with that photo in my lap. The only sound the hum of the old refrigerator and the whisper of something inside me breaking again. Not loud, not sudden. Just quietly giving up. She was stirring a pot of soup when I asked. Nothing fancy, just something from a can, but she moved around her kitchen like she was hosting a banquet. "So," I said carefully, "will I be giving a toast at the wedding?" Her spoon stopped mid-stir. She didn't look up. We thought it might be better if we kept the speeches tight. Tight, I repeated. You know, just focus on the couple. Trevor's dad will say a few words, then Jake the best man. Maybe Melissa from college, short, sweet. I waited for my name. It never came. What about me? She finally turned around. Dad, you're not exactly lighthearted. These things need to feel upbeat. I stood there, dumbfounded, holding a bottle of wine I'd brought. The label was the same one her mother used to pour at birthdays. I set it on the counter. I'm not lighthearted. She sighed. Look, I just don't want it to feel heavy. You get emotional, it's not the vibe we want. I nodded slowly. So no speech, no aisle, no words from the man who raised you. You're twisting it, she snapped. It's our day, not yours. We're just trying to keep it simple. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't beg. I just picked up the wine bottle again and said, I'll leave this here. Maybe someone will enjoy it. Dad. Don't worry, I said, heading to the door. I won't make anything about me. The drive home was a blur of headlights and thoughts I didn't want to think. When I stepped inside, I didn't take off my coat. I walked straight to the hall closet and pulled down the old box marked Lauren Childhood. Inside, among birthday cards and stick figure drawings, was a letter she'd written at 8 years old. Dear Daddy, you are my hero. I want to be just like you. I hope when I get married, you will walk me down the aisle like in the movies. Loved, Lauren. I sat on the floor and read it 3 times. She used to cry when I missed a recital. Now she winced when I asked to speak at her wedding. I held that letter like it was proof that once I mattered. But heroes don't get uninvited to their daughter's joy. They just disappear from the story. And I was already halfway gone. The call came late. Emily never called late. Dad, her voice was soft, almost hesitant. I'm here, I said, sitting up in bed. I heard about the wedding, about the aisle. I closed my eyes. Word gets around, I guess. There was a long pause on the line. Then she exhaled. It's not right. The way she's treating you. I don't care if it's her big day, that doesn't give her the right to cut you out of it like some inconvenient detail. I didn't know what to say. Emily had always been the quiet one, the peacekeeper. She never raised her voice, never stirred the pot. She used to boss me around when we were little, she said. I thought that was just sibling stuff, but it's different now. I see it clearer. She doesn't respect you, Dad. I don't think she ever did. I stayed quiet. Sometimes silence says more than defense ever could. She and Trevor had dinner at our place a few months ago, Emily continued. They didn't know I was in the hallway. I overheard them talking about you. My chest tightened. What did they say? They called you the bank account with shoes. Said once the wedding was done, they'd figure out how to handle the cabin situation. Like it was some chess piece they just hadn't claimed yet. A pulse in my temple began to throb. I'm sorry I didn't tell you sooner, she whispered. It's all right, I said. You did now. Another pause. Then she asked it, the question that sat like a stone in my gut long after we hung up. "Why does she get everything," she asked, "when she treats you like nothing?" I had no answer, only a bitter taste in my mouth. After the call, I walked downstairs. No lights, just the soft hum of the fridge and the creak of old floorboards under my feet. In the back of the hallway cabinet, behind some tax files and a faded box of Christmas cards, I pulled out a locked tin box. Inside, the deed to the lake house. I hadn't touched it in years. It was meant to be passed down, a family place. Lauren always assumed it was hers. She said it outright once, smirking. "One day that cabin will be our summer home." But she never asked, never earned it, she just counted it. I held the deed in my hand and thought about Emily, the daughter who never demanded anything. The one who called, not because she wanted something, but because she saw I'd been hurt. The key turned gently in my fingers. Maybe it was time something changed hands, not out of spite, but out of clarity. Out of memory, out of love. I wasn't supposed to hear it. But betrayal rarely asks permission. I had dropped by the venue to sign a catering check, another urgent expense they'd forgotten to mention. The bridal party was rehearsing near the gazebo. I stayed back out of sight when I heard her voice. Lauren laughing. "Once the wedding's over," she said to one of her bridesmaids, "I'll convince him to transfer the cabin. He's soft when you flatter him. Just say something sentimental, he melts." The girls laughed. Even her fiancé joined in from across the path. "He still thinks it's for the family," she added, "but we'll rent it out half the year. Might as well make it useful." My blood ran cold. They walked off, still joking, still planning a future funded by what I built with bare hands. And in that moment, I realized they didn't even see me as a person anymore, just a vault that occasionally spoke. I drove home in silence, no radio, no thoughts that weren't heavy. She forgot I was still here, still watching, still feeling. When I got home, I went straight to the study and pulled the deed from the safe, the one with her mother's handwriting still on the back of the envelope. "Lake House, keep safe." I sat down, turned on the desk lamp and stared at the page. For years, I thought the cabin would be hers, that it was a way to ensure she'd never feel lost when I was gone. I imagined her taking her own children there one day, letting them feed the ducks at dawn the way she once did. But that little girl doesn't exist anymore. I opened a fresh folder and typed a new label, transfer of ownership. The pen trembled slightly in my hand as I filled out the form. Grantee, Emily Langford. Not Lauren. Emily, the one who never asked, never assumed, never mocked. When I finished, I picked up the phone and called Daniel, my lawyer. His voice came through steady and familiar. "Richard, it's been a while." "It has," I said. "I need to transfer the lake house deed to my younger daughter, make it official." He paused. "Not Lauren." "No." Another pause, then quietly, "Is this about revenge?" I looked at the deed, at the ink still drying under my name. "No," I said, "it's about remembering who stayed kind." For a long while after the call ended, I sat there in the quiet hum of the lamp, the paper still warm from my hands. Through the window, I could see the moon reflecting off the lake in the distance, calm, untouchable, steady. Just like I intended my legacy to be. The church was dressed in gold and blush, like something out of a bridal magazine. Rose petals lined the aisle, candles flickered in tall glass columns, and every detail screamed elegance. Except the seat where I should have been. I sat near the back, in a row half filled with distant relatives and barely familiar faces. No corsage pinned to my lapel, no role in the ceremony, just another body in a suit. People nodded politely. Some offered that awkward half-smile reserved for someone they know is being quietly humiliated. The music swelled. Everyone stood. And there she was, Lauren, radiant in white, her arm looped through her soon-to-be father-in-law, like it had always been his job to lead her through life. My heart didn't break. It just folded in on itself, slow and tired. She didn't look at me, not once, not even a glance as she passed. But Emily did. From across the aisle, her eyes met mine. She mouthed something, "I see you." And for a moment, I could breathe again. The ceremony was quick. Vows, rings, applause. A kiss that felt more rehearsed than real. They were announced as husband and wife, and everyone clapped. Except me. Not out of bitterness, just emptiness. Emily found me after the recessional, slipping quietly into the seat beside me. "They're doing photos outside," she whispered. I nodded. My hands were still but cold. She reached for one without a word. Her grip was warm, grounding. "I'm sorry," I said softly. "You deserved more than you got." She looked at me, eyes glassy. "So did you." The band started to play from the reception hall. The first dance, Lauren and Trevor gliding across the polished floor as cameras clicked and guests cooed. I watched from the doorway, one hand still in Emily's. Then I let go. "I think I've seen enough," I said. "You want me to come with you?" she asked. "No," I smiled. "You should stay. You're still allowed to enjoy what you can." I walked out into the evening air. The wind cut sharp through my jacket, tugging at my collar like an old friend trying to get my attention. I stood at the edge of the parking lot, watching the stained glass windows flicker with candlelight and music from the party inside. But I didn't cry. I didn't look back. Some goodbyes don't need words, just an empty chair and the quiet ache of knowing you were never meant to sit in it. She didn't knock, just walked in like she still had that right. I was sitting at the kitchen table, sipping lukewarm tea, staring out at the half-dead potted plant on my balcony. It hadn't rained in weeks. "Hey," she said, holding something in her hand, a real estate brochure with glossy pictures of the lake, the dock, the trees I planted 30 years ago. "We were thinking about the cabin," she started, easing into the seat across from me like this was any other day. "It'd be perfect for a honeymoon. Quiet, private. Trevor loves the water. We might even make it our summer home down the line." I didn't respond right away, just took another sip of tea, let the silence stretch long enough for her to feel it. Then I said, "You should ask your sister." She blinked. "Why would I do that?" I reached under the table and slid the folder toward her. Simple, unlabeled, just thick enough to mean something. She opened it. Her eyes scanned the top page. Then she froze. The deed stamped, signed, legally transferred. "To Emily." Her fingers tightened on the edge of the folder. "You gave it to her." I nodded once, calm, measured, like I was statting the weather. Her mouth hung open. "Why?" I looked her dead in the eye. "Because she never stopped treating me like her father." That hit. She flinched, but masked it quickly with anger. "You're punishing me for one decision," she hissed. "One wedding moment." "No," I said. "I'm acknowledging a pattern." She stood up, arms crossed, lips pressed tight. "You'll regret this, Dad." I raised an eyebrow. "That's what you said about the aisle." Her jaw twitched. For a second, I saw the little girl I used to carry on my shoulders, the one who used to cry when I left for work. But that girl was gone, replaced by someone who saw love as leverage and kindness as currency. "You said you'd always protect me," she snapped. "I did," I said. "I protected the version of you who hadn't yet learned to weaponize affection." She didn't answer, just grabbed the folder and shoved it back across the table like it was trash. "You picked the wrong daughter," she muttered. "No," I said quietly, standing to walk her out. "This time I finally picked the right one." She left without another word. As the door clicked shut behind her, I poured the rest of my tea down the sink. Cold, bitter, but exactly how I needed it. Lauren's silence wasn't surprising. No thank you, no apology, not even a text on my birthday. Just nothing. I'd spent years watching her grow. Now I was watching her vanish, and the worst part was how expected it felt. Like watching a sunset you didn't ask for, slow, inevitable, and quiet. But Emily showed up every Sunday. Sometimes with groceries, sometimes just herself and a soft knock on the door. She never made a show of it. She just arrived, cleaned the gutters without asking, swept the porch, brought over soup when she heard I caught a cold. We started talking in a way we never had before. Thinking about fostering dogs, she said one afternoon while watering the balcony plants. At the cabin, feels like the kind of place where healing happens. I looked up from my paper. You sure dogs are messy? She smiled, so's life. I nodded. You always had the patience your sister didn't. She looked down, her thumb brushing the side of the watering can. It just feels like home up there. I let that sit for a moment. It is, I said, because it was built with love. And this time, for the first time in years, I said it without bitterness. There was no sting, no secret edge to the words, just the truth finally spoken plain. She set the watering can down, sat beside me. Did you ever wish things had gone differently between you and Lauren? I thought about that, not the easy answer but the honest one. I think I spent too many years confusing closeness with love, I said. She was always louder, always needed more. I gave more because she demanded more. And somewhere along the way, I mistook obedience for affection. Emily didn't speak, but she didn't need to. The silence was shared, clean. She rested her head on my shoulder. Well, I'm glad you saw me eventually. I always saw you, I whispered. I just didn't always know how to protect what was quiet. We sat like that for a long while, the two of us, surrounded by a quiet that didn't feel empty anymore. Outside, the wind moved through the trees, brushing golden leaves across the balcony like small reminders that everything changes, but not all change is loss. Lauren never called, not on Thanksgiving, not for Christmas. But Emily showed up like always. She brought a little rescue dog with her one Sunday, timid, scarred. His name's Murphy, she said, placing his paw gently in my palm. He doesn't trust easily, but he's got a good heart. I looked at her, then at the dog and nodded. Don't worry, Murph, I said, you're safe here. And for the first time, I believed it myself. The paper feels heavier than it should. Old stationery from a drawer I haven't opened in years, cream-colored, soft at the edges, like it knows it's about to hold something that matters. I don't write to Lauren. I write about her. I begin slow, careful, not out of bitterness, not anymore, but clarity. If you're reading this, you're likely wondering why things happened the way they did, why one daughter was chosen over the other, why silence met pride and love met loss. I tell the truth, not the edited version we share at holidays. The real one, the way Lauren looked at me that day over coffee, her mouth wrapped around the words, "You're not walking me down the aisle." I described that moment, how the air felt, how the sound of her spoon clinking against the mug was louder than her voice, how I waited for her to laugh. She didn't. I write about all the little withdrawals before that, how she slowly turned me from a father into a funding source, how love became an invoice. Then I write about Emily. Not because she asked for it, she never would, but because memory is fragile and I don't want the wrong story to survive me. I write about the Sunday mornings, the way she brought life back into quiet rooms, the way she reached for my hand in a church filled with people who forgot who paid for the pews. I write about the day she cleaned out the cabin gutters without a word and left soup on my stove, about how she never once asked for anything, yet gave more than I knew I needed. I place the letter in an envelope and seal it with wax, an old habit, one my wife used to love. I write for Emily across the front, though I don't know if she'll find it. I tuck it into a small wooden box, the same one that once held wedding bands and baby shoes. I fill it with a few photos, One of Lauren in pigtails, one of Emily in the garden, one of the cabin on a foggy morning. I place the spare keys on top. That afternoon, I drive to the cabin. The lake is still. The porch creaks under my steps like it remembers me. Upstairs in the attic, beneath the old fishing gear and dust-covered board games, I leave the box in a corner, not hidden, just resting. If someone finds it one day, they'll know. They'll see that love isn't always loud. That sometimes the one who never asked for anything is the one who deserved everything. And they'll understand who was loved and who remembered to love back. The walls are smaller now, but they breathe. I downsized last spring. Nothing dramatic, just a modest cottage close to the lake, where I can still hear the loons in the morning and see the water catch fire at sunset. The house may be smaller, but somehow it feels fuller. Emily drops by every Sunday, sometimes with soup, sometimes with leftover banana bread from a neighbor, always with something to share, a story, a laugh, a memory I'd forgotten I even had. She curls up on the porch swing like she's been doing it for years. "The garden at the cabin's blooming again," she said today. "The hydrangeas came in early, and the lavender spreading across the path." I looked over at her and smiled. "Your mother would have loved that." "I know," she whispered. We sat there for a while, listening to the trees rustle like old voices. No rush, no noise, just the weight of time settling gently between us. Later that afternoon, the phone rang. It was Daniel. "All finalized," he said. "The estate is done. Emily gets everything, the accounts, the cabin, what's left of the savings, and the charity you requested. You're sure about that?" "I'm sure," I said. "Nothing to Lauren." I paused, not to reconsider but to remember. "Not out of spite," I said. "Out of truth. You can't pass down love to someone who's already walked away from it." He didn't argue, just said he'd send the paperwork for my files. After I hung up, I walked back outside. The sun was dipping behind the trees, throwing long shadows across the yard. Emily was still there, dozing lightly under the weight of the day. She stirred as I sat beside her. "You okay?" she asked. "Better than I thought I'd be." She smiled, resting her head against my shoulder. "Murphy dug up another glove," she said. "I think he's on a mission to destroy every pair I own." I laughed. Maybe he's just making room for something new. She chuckled, then grew quiet. "You ever think about what you're leaving behind?" "All the time," I said, "but not in the way I used to. I don't think legacy is a thing you write in stone. I think it's something you leave in gentle hands, hands that remember how to hold, not just take." I looked at her, saw her eyes, so much of her mother in them, and felt something settle in my chest. Not regret. Peace. I closed my eyes, listening to the trees bend in the breeze, and I knew, truly knew, that the life I built hadn't been wasted. It had simply taken a different path to be loved.